Hey guys, what's going on? Okay, so today I wanted to take you through my Mythrax mythic kill. As a feral druid, I know a lot of you out there are probably being forced to play balance, but I think if you just gotta fight your raid leader enough. If you fight him off enough and do good enough DPS, you can secure your spot. Normally in this fight, they only really take 4 or 5 melee at best. It depends really on how skillfully you can pull off the tactics. The main reason being for this positioning that we're looking at here, I mean, you can see that this green circle, this weak aura in the middle of my screen, and basically I want that to remain green. It basically flashes, see it goes red there, it's basically flashing saying, you're too close to somebody else. You want to be moved away from them, be spaced out. The reason being, you can see those orbs off in the distance in the ranged. Those orbs, if they spawn on a random player periodically throughout the fight, and you can use various weak auras or just your own brain or whatever you want to track when those are going to spawn. But they will spawn on a random player, and if you're stacked too closely to another player on your team, then, well, they're not going to be on the enemy team, are they? If you stack too closely to a player, then you can end up both getting mind controlled in this orb, and basically when you get kicked out of that orb by your own teammates, then you're just going to do raid wide damage. Oh, Jesus Christ, try that one with a speech impediment. And so you really want to avoid stacking up. So that's really why you don't want to take too many melee on this fight. Apart from that, in terms of tactics, guys, there's the Imminent Ruin, which you can see I have on myself, and you can see at the last second there, I just move out of the raid and drop it out of the raid. That is not too damaging. Like, you move out with it, obviously, follow the tactic, but you can kind of delay it until the last couple seconds. You don't really need to run out immediately. That's really going to choke your DPS. And I mean, speaking of which, you can see on the DPS meters, a lot of people saying, how kind of Feral's struggling at the minute, but actually this fight can be really quite good for Feral. I found there's only one point in the fight at which I really felt helpless, but during this main stage of the fight, the main phase of the fight, it's actually quite good being Feral because you have a 2-target cleave. So you can really, I mean, I think we're probably the kings. Maybe Warlock, you could argue a Warlock is potentially better at cleaving, but I'd say a 2-target cleave is the perfect situation for Feral. And I mean, mainly I started out the fight and I maintained my bleeds and everything quite well, but certain points in the fight where, mainly towards the last kind of 30% or so of the boss, that I really start to kind of get a little bit nervous, get a little bit get a little bit close to the kill, and you kind of play breaks down a little bit, and so I think that's mainly just what happened that caused me to choke a little bit. But in general, this fight's quite good for us. This is the only part of the fight that we seem to struggle with, where we have to move away. We get these ads spawn, and we then have to move away from them. Now, I killed this boss after 130 or so wipes with my guild, so I mean, that's upsetting in itself. But I tried a few, obviously I had time to kind of experiment with a few things. And the spawning of these ads made me think, well, there are quite a few ads. I mean, I think probably around about 7 or 8 ads up roughly at the same time, just from a quick visual kind of spec. It looks, around about like 5 or so mobs there. I kind of experimented with the rake tabbing compared to thrash and swiping, and I found that both of those are quite difficult to pull off effectively because you end up just being quite energy starved. You're never in a great position to kind of make good use of either ability, but I think rake tabbing seems to be the best DPS on those ads. And you can see, I mean, during that phase, when I went into that ad phase, I was top DPS by quite a significant amount. As soon as the ads came up and those demon hunters and stuff, and the outlaw rogue, etc., managed to just kind of get a little bit of padding off, suddenly I fall off dramatically, and I can't sustain any rip bleeding. I mean, on the one big mob maybe, but on the destroyer maybe, but in general I can't really get any efficient damage, and so that's where I kind of fall off in DPS. You may be wondering what talents I'm running. Quite late into the fight to give you a heads up, but a very single target heavy build. So we've got Lunar Inspiration, Jagged Wounds, Sabertooth, and Blood Talons, and obviously as single target Azerite traits as I can get. Kind of a luck of the draw on what Azerite you can have. I'm not really sport for choice. I kind of have 1, 3, 8, 5 that I can choose from, so there's not really a great choice set for me. In general, on this fight, I mean, my DPS was okay. just maintain your bleeds. Try and, I mean, the Imminent Ruin, for example, try and leave it until the last second to move out so that you can make sure that you're, maintaining as much damage as possible. And obviously, when you know you are going to have to move out, make sure you have your bleeds maintained on the target so that when you do move out, your bleeds are still at full duration and they're not falling off as you've moved away from the boss. Because as well, if you get energy capped as you're moving away from the boss and standing on the edge of the room, well, then you've wasted energy and then your bleeds fall off. That's a really tough situation to be in. So in general, you kind of just have this ebbing and flowing, and the more you wipe on this boss, the more you'll kind of realize that ebbing and flowing of this. Everyone move into the middle so that we can spawn the ad, and then immediately after everyone move away from each other and spread so that we don't spawn orbs on each other, and then everyone move in immediately afterwards so that we can spawn the ad at the center of the boss so we can get a good cleaving ratio going on. The only other tactic that you really need to worry about that is really quite major is the beams, and both the boss and the ad will do a beam, but being in melee range, it's quite easy to dodge these. I found the only trouble I had was dodging the beam and then immediately getting hit by an Oblivion Orb, and I'd obviously be in a position that I don't want to be in if the beam had been aimed at me. So I end up kind of getting a little bit cuckarinoed on that, where you can sometimes just pour RNG, you get like double hit with a beam. So you end up having to move out, and you end up stacking people in the orbs. So it's not great. Again, a kind of top tip on how you can increase your DPS on this fight is during this stage, you'll see that our group is moving from one side to the other. Now, our guild leader, you can't hear it, obviously, because I've got it muted, but you can see the beam countdown, right? And people should start moving over right about now at around about 2 or 3 seconds. But I leave it until the very last second to start moving over, and obviously making great use of the balance affinity to make sure that I can keep DPSing and try and get as much DPS out of this as I can before I have to move. And that just comes down to knowing, obviously listen to your raid leader, but know a little bit more in yourself. Don't fully trust your raid leader because, they got their own job to do, their own class to play, so they can't always just be babysitting. And sometimes I find that if you do just trust entirely in your raid leader, you can end up dying, or, end up moving too early, and, various things like that. Obviously, as well, something that can increase your DPS on this fight is your own group getting you out of the Oblivion Orbs as quickly as possible. Now, obviously, there's nothing you can really do on that, but you just gotta kind of, if you find yourself sitting in orbs for a long time, then after that wipe or whatever, just shout at them and be like, hey guys, let's be quicker on those orbs. Especially when you're in melee range, everyone can see you, everyone's looking past you, everyone's actually targeting past you to target the boss, As well, what might be helpful for your raid mechanics wise, because this is quite a mechanically intense boss. Like, it's very easy when you think about what you have to do. Very easy. I found after about wipe 10 or 15, I was basically just waiting around for the rest of the raid to figure out what was going on and just kind of get it on lock. But so I spent a lot of time just hanging out and seeing where I can kind of improve on my mechanics, improve on my DPS, and you'll see that I make good use of Typhoon to kind of, whenever there's anyone within a vicinity that I can hit with Typhoon, I'll quickly just rapidly turn, hit him with Typhoon, straight back onto the boss, no worrying around. So that's a nice clean kill, clean kill. I don't think we really had any deaths, or very, very few deaths indeed. So quite a nice clean kill. I managed to not get any loot, of course, why would I? But I managed to get quite a nice percentile log on this. It was a top 10, but I mean, as you can see, I think I might even jump into this now. It was a good, I can claim top 10 in the world for this as a feral, but unfortunately there are only 26 feral druids that have actually killed this fight. So actually, although it was a top 10 fight, my percentile is like a 70 or an 80 or something like that. Yeah, 59. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so 77 personal, just whatever. So the percentile isn't great, but actually that's a top 10 pass right there. So very interesting. But on the whole, that was an okay kill. Nothing special, but we did okay. And that's just kind of to give you guys a viewpoint of what it's like to be playing as feral. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Definitely, if you want to see more content like this, you can see that I do stream these bosses, and I'm going to be streaming Mythic Gahoon as well. So if you want to tune into that, guys, that's Monday, Wednesdays, and Sundays to see me raid and stuff. and check that out. So I hope to see you guys there. Thank you very much for tuning in.